The Science of What Happens When We Die, presented by Horizon Research Foundation. The question of what happens when we die has intrigued mankind since the beginning of time. Before the advent of cardiopulmonary resuscitation and research into cardiac arrest, after somebody died there was very little that could be done to revive them, and this meant that death was very much a moment as defined by the heart stopping. Throughout the past centuries and millennia, ancient physicians also attempted to revive the dead. However, most of their attempts were largely futile. Some of the earliest attempts centered around warming a person after they had died. This was because ancient physicians associated warmth with life and coldness with death. Different methods were used to warm the dead, which included the use of smoke insufflated into the body cavities, as well as rubbing heated excrement onto the victim's body. Later, some people also started using a whip to stimulate a dead person to life, while others used a fireplace bellows to blow air into the victim's lungs. In older times, since there was no way of reviving the dead, one could define death essentially as the moment the heart stopped beating. In modern times, we call this process a cardiac arrest, which is biologically synonymous with death. Although we die of different causes, such as an accident, a severe illness, or even a heart attack, the final biological step is when the heart stops. Contrary to commonly held perceptions, death is not a moment, but is actually a biological process that begins when the heart stops beating, and it's potentially reversible in the early phase. This is what medical teams attempt to do while performing cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Once the damage to the cells in the body becomes too extensive, then even restoring blood flow will not support life anymore. Extensive research has shown that after a cardiac arrest, brain functioning stops and there is no longer any electrical activity in the brain while doctors attempt cardiopulmonary resuscitation. One of the most intriguing scientific questions to arise is, at what point after we die do we lose our mind and consciousness? Is it immediately after the heart stops beating? Is it a few seconds, minutes, or even hours later? A number of recent small scientific studies published in highly reputable scientific journals have indicated that the mind and consciousness may continue to function after the brain has stopped. Many people have been able to recall seeing and hearing doctors and nurses working on them while watching from a point above. It is possible that these claims are simply a trick of the mind. However, an objective scientific study is needed to determine whether consciousness and the mind can continue after death